So each decade escalated to global takeover with the excuse of people are having too much private freedoms, and it's leading to terrorism, and it's leading to these so-called climate, and I said that word wrong, and I got shadowed banned. So it's going to lead to carbon issues, and people need to be taxed because they know the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And so it's going to look like the book of Revelation. So we have to have a narrative and a meme, and we have to name that because that looks like Revelation, and we can't have people looking at the Bible. So the following that I'm going to share here is the pattern I first noticed in 2017. When I first sat down and started, I'm going to do my channel, I shut down my blog, and I said went to like Christian movies and was sharing in churches the creationism movies and the proof of with my mom. I had done some political work too, and I felt very blessed by doing that. But I had done some speaking in front of the church about science, basically the truth versus what they try to teach us. And I had started my channel, and I was going to just share everything, share lots of things. And that's when I first was like studying on my computer and on the internet about these patterns, these decade patterns, the 2000 pattern, the 2010 pattern. So I wondered what was next. By mid 2019, I was reporting we would be looking at the black horse, quote, dead ahead. And then 2020 happened. And I said it may come as late as 2021 because of some of the other pattern. And also the pattern I'm noticing, it may just be a foreshadowing of horsemen later, but it's starting to really look like the real seals. I think the only thing that tells me that we might have more time, and when I wrote this was before the recent world event, so I'm not even counting this, but one of the things I'm wondering is it talks about Babylon burning right before Armageddon, like during the bowls of wrath. Is Babylon here? A lot of people think it's America. Or can it rise overnight, like with the AI systems? This great marketplace that the whole world looks to. And I used to be thinking that China could be that with their massive, amazing skills for real on tech, and maybe they'll become that quickly overnight. But lately I learned that they're not. They're saying they're 3 times bigger than they are, basically. If you guys ever want to get interested and study that, their population is about a third of what they say it is. And but they are like a manufacturing powerhouse, though, compared to us in a lot of ways. So maybe they are Babylon. That's the only other place I would know of that would be Babylon other than America. But I don't know if they can match our level of corruption, like the Hollywood scene and all that, even though they're trying to be part of it. The other things that concern me that there's no going back, everything will be fulfilled soon, is we're most likely in that generation that Jesus said everything will be fulfilled in this generation. A lot of people say that the fig tree parable is about you have to count when Israel legally became a nation. And when that happens, you have one generation till the end times. So I reread that and studied it because I was teaching that too. And he doesn't ever really say that. I think people think Israel's like a fig tree in some parables, so that's how they attach it. But what makes a lot more sense is when he is describing these beginning of sorrows of earthquakes in diverse places and different events like that, the weather, the politics, the cataclysms, that's when he's saying all the things will happen in the same generation. And that's, you can argue if that would be up to even 120 years, but it's not going to be 200 years probably, not one generation. And if you study that time in the Gospels, and 3 of the Gospels, where you have a cataclysm in the heaven, where the angels will collect the believers, you have the moon, the sun changing color, and the stars falling, that matches verbatim the 6th seal of Revelation. So I believe the angels collecting believers is at the 6th seal of Revelation. And if you look there, the 5th seal is describing tribulation martyrs. So it looks like it is placing tribulation martyrdom before the 6th seal cataclysm and angels collecting believers into the air. And so some people who are pre-trib rapture that say, okay, that means that the rapture will occur before the 5th seal martyrs. That's how you get people saying there must be multiple raptures. So that's just where you get some of the different beliefs. So in conclusion, I believe everything will wrap up pretty quickly once we identify beginning of sorrows. And I would say these past 5 years, we've been in the beginning of sorrows, especially a lot of places in the world, for 15 years maybe. Yep. But especially the past 5 years. That's when America got brought into it, I believe. We were into it, honestly, since '08. But it's undeniable that we're in the beginning of sorrows. Another side note here that I've mentioned before, the timing of Apophis, the late Tom Horn wrote about this also, in case you want to look up his work on it, because he does a lot of good work on prophecy, on end time prophecy studies. And he was one of the ones that said he believed that the elephant in the room is that we were at the third seal, black horse of Revelation, but he's passed on. But he studied the Apophis comet, and I think he might have tried to put that in with wormwood. I don't remember. But this is the one that, interestingly, the scientists are saying supposedly, then this may just be a psyop to make us be looking at these years or something. But, and I think with the SpaceX thing and the Space Force, I think that was meant, that was built to take care of certain parts of the powers of heaven will be shaken, such as the increase of asteroids that we'll probably be seeing to keep us safer. And they probably won't even tell us what all they do as far as that goes. Just keep us quiet and peaceful and not noticing. And the Apophis that they point out, though, is supposed to come very close to Earth, near miss in 29, which now people have said the heavens have shaken so much and changed so much that even these numbers may change or come faster. And then they're like, well, if it don't hit in 29, guys, it's going to hit in 36. And this is a big one. And notice how that is 7 years apart. Why did they even name it Apophis? Some people knew some things. I'm saying the people that put in the agencies to watch the heavens, this was not evolving in science and going to space travel and colonizing the galaxy like Star Trek. That's not what that was. It was black magic. It started with black magic, and it's being watched because of black magic. And they're trying to figure out when the Lord's coming back, what's going on with these powers of heaven shaking. Is it the binary system, and how close is it, and how close is the Lord's return? It's that kind of stuff they're figuring out, and probably fallen angel activity out there and things like that. But the reason these people were naming this the Apophis, y'all, guys, they know things. They didn't just accidentally find out that these outer planets were shaking and that we had a binary. They were looking for them to shake, to figure out how close the binary was, because they knew things. They know things, so they named the Apophis comet. It'll come really close in 2029, and it will hit in 2036. And I'm wondering, well, maybe that is wormwood. And so I'm wondering, would the tribulation begin with the pale horse in 2029, something like that? Because that would be right on schedule for the pale horse. If the black horse came in 2019 with the virus, then 29 would be the pale horse over 1/4 of the earth. And you may be thinking, well, how does pale horse apocalypse coincide with the technological explosion? And it does, and I'm sure you can come up with ways that it does. There could be AI wars. There could always be an outside thing like a CME or the wars that we're seeing now. But I also reference that over 1/4 of the earth may literally be over 1/4 only, while the rest of the earth still carries on. One reason why it would be hard to see if the North America was over that 1/4, maybe the pale horse would be a temporary move, but also it's hard to see America being under the pale horse and Babylon at the same time. That's one thing I'll keep in mind as I go forward in my studies. Apophis number 1 and 29 may be a good bragging rights for the new technology, the AI and the Space Force, to say, look, we can save you from anything now. Trust the science and everything we're going to push coming forward. So Apophis was first supposedly discovered and named in 2004. And maybe it was because of the calculations of it hitting us. Maybe it's just that simple. Whenever I study like what we've in the Gospels, how it's described the things we will see in these beginning of sorrows, that what seems to be next on the calendar for these past few years, what seems to be next is the fearful signs and great signs shall there be from heaven. Those may already be visible in other parts of the world. We may be seeing them now with the UAP situation. And you see different videos, it's probably highly censored. So we might be there, it's just censored. But Apophis would be a pretty big sign. We may actually see it pass by and people be nervous about, oh my goodness, it'll probably cause earthquakes when it does and sea and waves roaring. It may cause meteor issues that are actually dangerous. Speaking of the weather and like how long can it keep escalating and how bad it is like the size of the hailstorms are getting very dangerous. Like there's not even a safe place from them. It's just random destruction. We've been sold the climax. I'll say that word. How about that? Crises since the 80s because powers to be knew that this season was coming and it would look like apocalypse. People are using that word. So they've been misinforming for taxes and takeovers. So scientists have been able to report there's different reasons. Like they're saying that Jupiter and the sun have the same changes at the same time because whatever is affecting Earth is affecting everything together from outside of us. And that's been being watched for a long time. And I hope that's another one of those narratives that I hope really gets out there to enough people they can understand. I think where it is now is we're going to have so much disaster and apocalypses that that's a side issue even, no matter how bad it gets, until maybe it comes to starvation levels. That'll be one of like maybe 5 major crises. And so people will be like, all it's going to do is when the government gets ready to make certain moves, people will have even less of a reason to even ask a question. They'll either be like, there's nothing I can do about it anyway, we have to save the earth, or they'll be like, this is them lying again, we can't do anything about it. The powers of heaven shall be shaken. This explains earthquakes and volcanic increase. It explains the steady escalation of winds, high winds, hailstorms, wildfires, hurricanes, hypercanes, straight line winds, the shifting magnetic poles, the earthquakes, volcanoes, droughts, floods, and pestilence. Unless somehow this hibernates or stalls, then we're at the time of sorrows because we're here. It's explaining all of it and why the famous phrase of there will be earthquakes in divers places, including under the oceans even. And another thing that lets you know what time we are is the AI and the fact that everybody is just turning it loose and saying don't even hold it back. Supposedly who is running the Western government now is a religion. That's why they come out and say, I'm not a Christian. I love y'all Christians. I'm not a Christian. It's a religion that has to do with the golden age, and one of their religions includes AI and pushing forward with it, or at least that's what they are saying. They may know exactly what's up. And once you release it, you can't really stop it. And once more, just like the weather, how long can you live like that? And how long can you just turn that loose and let it go and not be in the end time soon? Basically, everybody knows that that's the mark of the beast. And that will lead into the beast system with the image of the beast, the instantaneous global economy and communications. Revelation 13:11 through 18. I'm not even calculating the wickedness factor. I've kind of talked about it. But people in other times thought that they were at the last days. But I think that's because people sometimes will overhype and say, oh, we're here. They'll overhype and just jump to wild conclusions all the time. And maybe I do it too enough. But in other times it was like you don't even have the capability of a worldwide market. Like in Hitler's time. Yeah, he looks like an Antichrist and he was an Antichrist figure. But you don't even have a capability of a global market, so we don't need to be saying that we're here. But people were concerned like the social security number was the mark, the number and the name. And the spirit of it was, so they was kind of right. But I don't think it's illegal or immoral to use that number though, for now, that number. So the difference between now and the times that people said that we're probably at the end times when we weren't even close is now we have like a lot closer to the tech to have that worldwide system in place. You can see the weather escalations and the political things really match in the Bible. Like I say, more people now are telling me they expect to be raptured any day now. So the people that are tired of hearing what I have to say are probably thinking that too. I don't even care about her because I'm getting raptured tomorrow. But and I'm not laughing at people for that sentiment of being with the Lord soon. That's in its own way that's kind of a virtue too. But as far as being willing to put the truth before what I want, it's principles like that that I have more of a struggle with. Are you willing to say, well, if it's not like I wanted to see it, as long as it's the truth? Because there's a whole spirit that comes with that that grounds you, and you can see better, and you can understand better, and you're more helpful with that attitude. So, and next I get into where it's very possible that seals could be opening before a tribulation, and also seals could be opening in the beginning of sorrows before a tribulation. Because, and I don't find a verse that says it can't happen. The only thing that says that that can't happen is like a tradition and a emotional response that we don't want anything in the book of Revelation to happen until we're gone. It's a desire. It's not logical. It is an emotional desire of I don't want anything at Revelation to happen until we're gone. And so there's an assumption that there's 3 sets of 7. And some of it may just be that people never thought to think about it. You know, they may be innocent. I never thought to think about it. But all I really ever ask of people is, do you have, if you don't have the capability, I don't blame you either, but do you have the capability to even consider something may be different than you thought it was? It seems like that's missing for a lot of people, but I also came to the conclusion that part of prophecy is people don't understand it till it already happened. That always was the way it was in the Bible. So I don't need to worry too much about that. What people think about it, but there's a prejudice that they don't want any of there's 3 sets of 7 in Revelation. So somehow in the logical way that that goes is those all happen together. Those 3 sets of 7 must happen before the rapture, during the rapture, or after the rapture. So, of course, it must be after. So, I believe that's a lot more nuanced and complex theory there than a lot of things in life, just like a lot of things in life are. As far as you have to look at them and study them and figure it out, and you're not having to jump through 50,000 hoops to make something work. It's just simply the way it is. So in this case, when you have your 3 sets of 7, your seals, your trumpets, and your vials or your bowls, somewhere in there is the rapture. So you have some of it happening before a rapture, and some of it is the rapture, and some of it happens after. Like, why can't that be possible? Or do you have it in your mental capacity to think, maybe that's possible? Not sense according to what I want, but sense according to what the verses are telling me. And the reason why it would be important is so that you're not disheartened, you're not discouraged, and you can help other people the same way. And I think like some of the logical problem that people are having is I have 3 sets of 7. So especially like toward the very end where it's obviously called bowls of wrath. Wrath is being poured out. You have your people dying in the seas, the water's turning to blood. There's places being burnt, scorched all to pieces. It's right before Babylon burns. You have darkness on the seat of the beast, sores from people who took the mark of the beast. And all that does sound a whole lot like things that we're not appointed to and don't happen to Christians. And I'm agreeing. That does come after the rapture, because the rapture happens probably at the 6th seal. I'm going to do whole more videos on that too. I need to do Bible study videos. But if you have if we're like at the 3rd seal now and you have a 6th seal rapture, then the wrath is poured out. And you have all these things that people instinctually and spiritually know happen after a rapture into the wrath, then they're going to presume and assume that since vials of wrath happen after a rapture, then everything happens after a rapture. The seals happen after a rapture, the trumpets happen after a rapture, and wrath happens after a rapture. So they're thinking, we're raptured before anything. So I can kind of understand those kind of logical things, but I'm just asking people that, especially as the time comes, if you see it right in front of your face, If you see a mark being handed out, if you can't buy or sell or trade without a number and being in a system where you have to renounce all your faith, and there's a literal person sitting in the temple, calling themselves God, making sacrifices, a temple is now there, a covenant has been made with many, and the beheadings have started. Get yourself mentally where you're not in so much denial that you go into a state of psychosis and can't handle it. Like, those things may happen. Like, it's if other people around the world are going through bad persecution, then I understand that we may not be in a state to think we can handle that where we're at. So now it's time to pray to be able to handle it. Now it's time to seek God's face. How do I come to a state where I can mentally have peace? Especially since it's in the Bible that that's possible for the believer. It's like, what would be blocking people from having that whole conversation? What would be blocking people from having that spiritual exercise or that understanding that I can come to a place of peace with God no matter what's going to happen? Or I can come to a place of where God wants me to be for that time, because He's not going to leave you stranded, even through an Antichrist tribulation. He's going to have, He's going to have a way for people to even be martyred. It's always been that way. So, where is our faith? Where is our faith? And it's okay to have weak faith and little faith and beginner's faith. But do we need to start seeking and searching how to grow faith? If our faith is to where we are having issues with things that believers traditionally went through, like that's what it means to follow Christ. It's a lesson in it. It's a lesson. If you look at what believers went through that followed Christ and you have an issue with those things, then the lesson needs to be, what am I missing? Like the Lord will help me through it. Do I need to do any more seeking or soul searching or asking, seeking, knocking, asking, following the Lord, reading Revelation, reading chapter 2 and 3 of Revelation of how to please God more and be humble and change? Are there miracle changes that are needed that this calls for? So that's the kind of question that I'm grateful some people are doing it better than me, growing the right ways. The other notes I made here are kind of self-explanatory, just obvious things like that we've probably heard for a long time now from how long it's been happening. Of we now have the technology to be able to actually witness worldwide basically what's going to happen with the two witnesses whenever they are martyred and then they rise again at 3.5 days. And then I think one of the reasons why it's kind of easier in some ways for me to kind of put the timelines together of what goes where and how is that I'm not just putting together, and I'm not bragging, it's just there's problems with the brain that works this way too. But I'm not just thinking about what the information I'm given. I'm thinking a lot of things like how it goes together with other stuff or don't go together, and how the things that were not taught, not just the things that were told us, but the things that weren't told us. So if that wasn't being said, then this probably means, to varying degrees of percentage of probability of what it means or doesn't mean. Just too much complex thinking with analysis, probably. But an example of that is when Jesus said that there will be earthquakes in diverse places. A lot of the things in the teachings of the Lord are just simple, and they're meant to be taken simple, or He would have given a complexity. And when it's a mystery, He gives the mystery. And He even gives the interpretation of the mystery most of the time. So, for example, when He said there will be earthquakes in diverse places, He doesn't say, but don't be tricked or confused, because those earthquakes in diverse places are going to happen. Those earthquakes in diverse places are going to happen in cycles. And it's going to happen a few times before the one for the end time happens. It's pretty much when these earthquakes start messing up again on the earth since He came, and they're everywhere, like bad, and you can see the other stuff too. That's when you know. And like, it really is unique for that many earthquakes and volcanoes to be happening all over more and more. And that's why a lot of people are tying it into a binary system, is that that would be a reason why you would only have one powers of heaven shaking at one time so rarely, and not constantly from a lot of different causes. An example of something that Jesus does teach more complexly and say watch out for things is him saying watch out for false prophets rising up saying they are Christ and follow them. And he also says there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. So that's another case where he gives you a variety of different things are going to be happening. And that's where I've been able to stay kind of calm with the crazy things happening, is to not panic at every sign of here comes another war that's been happening for a while, is because some of these are just going to be a rumor of something and it's not going to actually turn out that big after all. But that would be a nuance, another thing that the Lord gives that's not quite. It's just going to be one big war. It's going to be wars and also rumors. And I think, too, in there, he was hinting at the internet that we were going to have an escalated ability for more rumors and more of that situation and things we could witness. Ability to measure the earthquakes in diverse places and understand that that's what time we're in. So, if seals are opening in the beginning of sorrows, they may be preparing the entire world for an Antichrist rule that we see in Revelation chapter 13. The beast system will promise 1,000 years with many health and economic miracles. But every time they say that, y'all, every time you hear, it's going to, we're just going to go utopia forever now. Finally, finally, everything good is here that we've always needed and wanted. And all the cures and all the travel and long life extension, 500 years, and we can fix all your messed up genes and extend your telomeres and you won't die and all this, and by then we'll have even more cures and all the promises. Yay, people will be crying. People will be crying from how wonderful the emotional, like now you see a lot of the people that are being interviewed about why they're protesting and rioting are not stable. Something's not quite, they caught them in a weak state, or something. And that's the people they're going to be putting up there on the promotions, is the people that they hadn't thought it all out. They had never heard of it. Poor folks. Pray for them. Pray for ourselves too. We're not perfect either, but the promises, the thing I'm just coaching myself to always remember is the maximum it will last for me is 7 years. That's the maximum. And I think part of the attack the Lord's given me is giving me a full appreciation of how long, but how short 3.5 years, 5 years, 7 years is. It's given me an experience. And maybe that's happening, hopefully, for everyone and for the believers in God. They're giving their coaching for what they're going to need. An appreciation of what 3.5 years feels like and is like, and how short it really is, how horrible it can be, but it is short and it is worth it. And how long 7 years is and how short that is. So 1,000 years is not 3.5 years, y'all. That's why we need to be reading Revelation, because some of these lies that they tell us, the Holy Spirit's gonna be bringing to our mind if we studied it. Maybe for the ones who haven't even studied it, for by miracles, the Holy Spirit's going to be confirming in our spirit and our mind. The kingdom of the beast is going to be sitting in darkness for 3 days. Not 1,000 years later. That ends. And you know what ends it? Is he appears in the clouds with great glory. That's the only thing that puts that end marker to it. He appears in the clouds with great glory, and every eye sees him, and the tribes of the earth mourn. They mourn that pierced him. So yeah, it's not 1,000 years, and it will only be a few years, and those who buy into the system are damned. The actual tribulation may begin somewhere in the seals. And especially if the angels collecting believers is the sixth seal, then that means the tribulation comes before the sixth seal. And the martyrdoms during this time do not appear very clearly, though, and described until the fifth seal. So the tribulation may begin before the fifth seal, possibly. And forgive me if they don't begin until the fifth seal. Maybe that's what that very clear description means. The Antichrist rule would require the world to be already prepared for that level of technology and politics. One of the ways you could think about is it's a lot to fit into a 7-year period. All the seals, all the trumpets, and all the vials. It's a whole lot to fit into those 7 years. I mean, maybe it could, but it does. In other words, that makes it a little bit more plausible. It don't prove it, but it makes it a little bit more plausible that, especially those first four horsemen, was setting the whole world up for the 7 years. Antichrist rule would require the world to be already prepared for that level of tech and politics. It doesn't just happen overnight. For example, especially with a strong America, especially before we were threatened at every single turn and level for the past 10 years. But for a strong America with all of our amendments in place, it's hard to just, here's the Antichrist beast system. Boom, there's all the tech, there's all the satellites, there's all the integration grid, there's all the Internet of Everything. It's all connected with Wi-Fi, and all the 10 king systems in the world surrender to that. It's already going to be kind of that fast, but you can see how the world has been prepared since the event in New York in 2001. It makes better sense that it's taking the world preparation through this Antichrist spirit of the white horse and the red horse and the black. It's taking the preparation time and every step that it's taken. It don't just happen overnight, and it makes sense that the seals would be progressive and perfect to prepare world government for the global government, to prepare all the world governments together for a global government. So the white horse may be Antichrist in spirit and intention, although the actual man of perdition may not have appeared publicly yet. Here is a rough outline of what we have witnessed. See how each step is needed for the final outcome. So I'm reading through what could be the seals and see how each one is needed for this outcome of the beast system. And so I started with seal. The first seal, or a white horse, would be the beginning. This would begin the political and banking power takeovers to drive conflict between East and West in the world and have an excuse to shut down all of the individual rights for the excuse of safety and peace and security. They even use these words, as you know, legally. The second seal would have been the red horse, a peace completely removed. They're expanding the East versus West to set up for specific Mid-East wars and conflict, and further collapse and destabilize private lives and all sorts of in-between governments and systems. Everyone and every organization will be forced to accept the fall of all leadership but a global one. Okay, seal 3 is the black horse. That would be your markets. Completely crush private rights or constitutions through health emergency, rollout of AI, satellite, drone, quantum tech, so that a beast system is completely possible now. And all the parts of the tech that are coming with it that's just practical is going to be your drones and robotics. It's already changing the world. And all of these conflicts that they're being used in are a perfect example to grow every bit of that. And the wars are expanding to force such an emergency that the world must accept a fake savior and sign the covenant with many. We're going to remove the currencies, and that's probably going to come in with a collapse, not only a collapse, but also the electronics being... The currencies have already moved into the ones and zeros, so that when that gets manipulated, the ones and zeros are not stable. So we need to have something stable. And the security of the currencies are going to be removed and replaced, and introducing an answer that no one can refuse. And they'll probably set up this precursor of the mark when everything goes completely cashless under the black horse with the scales and the rationing. The rationing could happen for a lot of different reasons also, but I believe it's going to probably have to do with jobs collapsing and being replaced with tech. And now you'll have a social score and universal income. So that would be a precursor of a mark system. And you would surrender everything. You will have nothing and be happy. But remember, when it gets scarier, the time is shorter. It needs to be, the Lord is bringing us, remember the prayer that Jesus prayed in the garden about everybody being unified with Him. and being one. That was a call to be outside of the systems. Once more, not preachy, just permission. That would be something to even memorize, is his prayer to the Father for us all to be together, to be one, to be unified, to be with him, to be with him in spirit and in righteousness with God. And that's basically where it's all going for the believer. So before Jesus died, he prays that. That's what we need to be studying before we go to. The next seal, I was thinking would be like the fallout, and it would be the final collapse. The final collapse is before you introduce the Savior, the fake Savior.